I'm here at European Utility Week with Frauke Thies from SmartEn. Frauke, thanks for joining us this morning.
Yes.
You chaired a session this morning about digitalisation and decentralisation in the energy sector. I'm wondering, how are the combination of those two things playing out? What are the opportunities that they've suddenly offered the energy sector in recent years?
I think generally these are the two big themes that we're seeing in a decarbonizing energy system. And we also must, because the two of them, I think, inherently go together. You can't picture decentralization working effectively without digitalization. And digitalization is needed to enable decentralization. Now, what does that mean? We're seeing a whole lot of new resources, new players also in the energy system. We're seeing decentralized generation, people being able to self-generate, whether they're industrial consumers or actually household consumers, to self-generate their own electricity, to have their own storage, and to activate all of their appliances, resources, manufacturing plants, you name it, to engage in demand response and participate in the market. And of course, all of this is and needs to be enabled by digitalization in order to make it work. And I think the different ways to use the digitalization and optimize the use of these decentralized resources for the customer, both be it on-site to optimally combine their generation, storage, demand response assets, but also, for instance, to react to price signals from the market, to consume when it's cheapest, to shift, to save on their bills in the end, or to actually valorize their electricity by selling to the market, be it if they're larger consumers themselves, but very often via service providers, via dedicated platforms, via automation as well.
And is there anything holding back all the introduction, the rollout of these new business models, whether it be regulatory or maybe just a reluctance from established players to just go and do something different?
Yeah, I think, of course, as with every change, you do encounter barriers, which can be as easy as saying it's past dependencies, people continue doing what they've always done. But I think there are also some that are very tangible, and many of them are in the field of regulation. Our market design has been made with having in mind centralized power generation and largely, well, non-active consumers. Now, the whole system looks entirely different, and that means rules and regulations have to change. We need to, first of all, allow consumers to participate in the system, something that is not a given at all. Which customers do have access to dynamic price signals in the first place? Only few countries in Europe allow it for smaller customers today. And even if it's allowed, we need suppliers to go for it and implement it, of course. Not many markets are open for these distributed resources to participate. So we need a whole change of access conditions, pre-qualifications, about minimum bit sizes, for instance, allowing aggregated products and not just individual single units. So regulation having to change in the respect of opening markets, giving access. Some incentive structures have to change as well, and that's something that was discussed in this morning's panel as well. System operators in the past used to basically have the task to build a grid and have it stable, and they could recover their cost for building grid. Now we need to change the whole mindset. It's no longer just about building grid, it's about using whatever resources are there to make the system most cost effective. It's about system operators procuring flexibilities, system services, and that means the whole regulatory framework has to change from a so-called CapEx-based world to a TOTEX-based world where operational costs are taken into consideration as well. So that's another important change. And then I think another one is that we have to start thinking across silos or break out of the silos. We used to see the sector as distribution, transmission, very limited interaction, transport, heating, electricity, whereas three separate silos. With sector coupling, all of this is merging. TSOs and DSOs need to work together because both of them will need to use resources and they should be used wherever they're needed most at any given time. But also electricity, heating and transport need to be thought together. Think of the electrification of transport, the smart use, for instance, of heat pumps to actually heat up a building or their water store or whatever it may be when power is abundant to be available when it's needed.
The panel that you chaired this morning was a panel of 7 industry experts who were all women. Is that indicative of the way the sector's changing, and how important is diversity to you?
This morning was inspiring to see so many great women speakers on the panel. I wish we saw this more often. Well, I wished we could see diversity in general, not women only, but in the future it should just be natural anyway. But I think indeed you mentioned diversity in general in the sector, and I do think we see that. We see that inevitably because we're no longer seeing the world of generation, supply, system operation, and that's it. No, we're seeing consumers becoming producers. We're seeing new service providers coming into the system. Roles and responsibilities are changing entirely. The value creation is in very different places than it used to be. So inevitably, independent of a gender question, I think we are seeing a lot more diversity happening in the sector, and it has to happen.
Frauke, thank you very much for your time today. That's all for now here at the European Utility Week.